All right, we have plenty of seats over here. Okay, so we'll get started at 6:45. We want to make sure everyone gets home on time. We have a full program for you tonight. First, I guess I have to, well, I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Jim Ryan, one of the co-founders of MedStro, the social network for physicians. And we are the ones who organized both the online competition and tonight's event. And then I have to also start with an apology. I know a lot of you were expecting Jennifer Joe to be up here instead of me emceeing the event. And unfortunately, she was unable to make it tonight at the last minute. While I may not have her energy or her laugh, I will try to make up for it with, what do I have? Well, I'll try to make up for it by being brief. First, I would like to thank Boston Scientific, the sponsor of the event tonight. Boston Scientific, as many of you may know, is a global medical device supplier. They have business in over 100 countries. And they have $7.5 billion in revenue a year. So a very big company. They help a lot of patients. And Boston Scientific is very proud to support innovation in healthcare, innovation in medicine, through many different ways, but especially through this event tonight, which is really focused on giving a stage to innovators and doctorpreneurs, as we like to call our doctor entrepreneurs, to really have a place to present some ideas that that maybe you haven't seen before and that could really change healthcare. I'd also like to recognize our other sponsors. So you can see up here. Obviously, here we're at Google's amazing event space. The Boston Common Room, this is called, and we're really, really thankful to Google for allowing us to use this space and for their amazing food and drink. Google Cloud Platform is actually an official sponsor of tonight's event, and we'll be hearing from them a little bit later in the event. I'd also like to recognize Johns Hopkins University, a sponsor of the event, as well as UMass M2D2, based out of UMass Lowell. MIT Hacking Medicine, of course, just around the corner here, and Partners Healthcare Connected Health, who is represented by Karen Chase, one of our judges, and also the Center for Bioengineering Innovation and Design, which is based at Johns Hopkins. So those are our official sponsors, and we thank them very much for their support of this event. I want to just talk briefly about how we got here. Many of you, I'm sure, followed the online sort of semifinals of this challenge. We began accepting ideas pretty much from the general public. We got ideas from all over the world onto our online platform back in September. And over the course of 3 months, we received 45 ideas. All sorts of different types of ideas, everything from what to do with the data to innovative new devices for collecting data. And throughout that whole period, we got great comments from the overall community on our social challenge platform. The 6 teams that you will see presenting tonight are the 6 that were selected not just by our expert judges, which obviously it's great to have judges who are experts in their field to help us select finalists, but we also had crowd voting, so you all got to participate in that. And over 4,000 of you voted during the competition. Some other numbers, we had almost 180,000 views of the competition while it was running online. And not only 4,000 votes, but over 4,000 people signed up to follow the updates of the competition. So our finalists tonight made it through that whole process, and they will each have 5 minutes. We're calling it a Shark Tank because you get 5 minutes and that's it. And they're going to have 5 minutes to present their idea and hopefully impress all of you and our judges. And at the end of that, our judges will deliberate. You'll hear a great presentation from Google Cloud Platform, and then we'll announce the winners. So I will pause because there's a bunch of people standing in the back. Feel free to come down. We have empty seats over here if you want to grab them. Great. Don't feel like you have to stand in the back for 2 hours. Excellent. So first up, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker. So our keynote speaker tonight is one of the co-founders of Boston Scientific and board emeritus of Boston Scientific, John Abele. John is a graduate of Amherst College and, believe it or not, double majored in physics and philosophy. I managed to single major in physics and drop out of it, so I'm quite impressed with that. I can't read my own notes. So John, throughout his whole career has really been heavily involved in innovation in healthcare and medical devices, and he has a real passion for improving healthcare and really helping patients get better. He's always had a policy of staying very close to the physician and the patient, and he goes in and with a new device and talks to the physician, talks to the patient as the device implanted, hears directly from them what's good about it, what's bad about it, goes back, refines it, comes back with a refined version. So he's really been doing agile development before I guess we even had a name for it and before people were even doing it. And that's always been his passion. He remains deeply involved with the business of Boston Scientific and is really passionate about promoting innovation, which is why we're really happy to have him as the keynote of our event tonight, whose focus is innovation. So without any further ado, John Abele.
Thank you, Jim. And welcome to you all. I'm fascinated by the whole concept of presentations and competitions and so forth, the X Prize, and it is fascinating. How many of you have read The Wisdom of Crowds? Hive Mind? There's a whole bunch of books like that. And that is going to be a more important way in which we interact going forward, partly because we can, and partly because we're learning how to do it better. How do you harness the wisdom of crowds? And something that I've been fascinated about, not just the technology, the devices and stuff like that, but watching how medicine changes and how do you get physicians to be more effective and efficient in what they do. And a lot of that is emotional and psychological as well as technological and physiological, or more. And I'm sort of long gone from the daily Boston Scientific routine, but absolutely fell in love with the idea of being in a position where you could change the way people think. In other words, in order to introduce a new concept, which for Boston Scientific was less invasive medicine, you've got to change the culture. And although a lot of people think the idea of developing products that reduce risk, trauma, cost, and time, well, everybody would obviously like that. You weren't there. Surgeons were not terribly happy. It had nothing to do with the logic. It had to do with, don't step on my turf. And the irony was, as we developed more and more equipment, it turns out they were neat toys. And there were a lot of different disciplines that liked those toys. And that was good and that was bad because we were in the middle of a war zone. And the cardiologists, the radiologists, and the vascular surgeons were really fighting. The urologists and the interventional radiologists were also fighting. I remember one great quote from the then president of the American Urological Association to a radiologist at the University of Minnesota was, keep your cotton picking hands off our prostate. And you gotta love that. It really comes down to deep funning. What I think is fascinating now, and I notice a lot of the connected health is kind of the wearable revolution, if you will. I also am excited about that. One of the particular interests I have is this whole field of mental health care. In the philanthropic world, if you're helping out homeless and so forth, one of the things you realize is that the percentage of homeless who have severe mental problems is going up as a percentage. That's not a good sign. We're getting behind her. Psychiatry is inherently an inefficient system for curing people. It's very slow. You don't get feedback right away. It's a problem. So I've been looking at the whole field of virtual psychiatry. Now, I've done some research. There are other people looking at this. I don't mean virtual like remote. I mean virtual like AI. A lot of you have wearables that you'll be talking about. What I'm talking about is wearables that understand what your body is thinking as opposed to what your mind is thinking. And as you all must know, they don't always line up. And have any of you worked with facial recognition tools, whether it's Affectiva or there are a number of others around there? That's been around since the 60s. Micro expressions, they call them. And you can tell lots of different signs of what a person is thinking from looking at the face. But in addition to that, you have all sorts of other sensors. One of the fascinating things is the math and algorithms for understanding the EEG are just continuing to explode. You're able to see what's going on in that particular muscle of your head much, much better than you were. And the EEG has been around for many, many years. It was an old Boston or Quincy company, Grass Instruments. And now it's gotten much, much more sophisticated because of the level of algorithmic skills that people have. And this is something that is, natural language algorithms as opposed to the algorithms you might normally be thinking of. And my view is this: if we're running out of the ability to address the people with this disease, what can we do to reduce it? Not eliminate it. What can we do to shorten and make more accurate the initial reaction, or initial transaction or therapy that you might want to do with these folks? I think there's a gold mine of information, and the ability to not do just a one-time assessment, but in fact have people do a quantified self, if you will. Have any of you view yourselves as quantified selves? Yeah, well, you don't count. Sorry. I sort of fall into that category. I'm fascinated by it. And you can all tell a lot more than you could. So the number of things that are sensors that you can wear, and they have the shirts as well as the wrist tools and so forth. You can measure GSR. You can measure all sorts of variables in heart rate. Heart rate variability is another sensor for stress. Stress is, of course, a major indicator of a body misperformance. And how that relates to various psychological conditions remains to be determined, but it's more than just EEG. And my view is that with the growing pile of big data and the way the cloud is evolving in use, you're going to be able to collect massive amounts of data, and using heuristic AI, maybe that's, I'm not sure if that's a tautology, but the idea of AI that learns itself. It takes and it sees patterns and begins to make judgments. And it works with professionals. Have any of you read Juan Enrique's book, Evolving Ourselves? Oh, good recommendation. Juan is a Boston guy who, the book is somewhat self-explanatory. Evolving Ourselves refers to the fact that we as a human species are going to be changing within this century to another species. We are going to become, however you want to phrase it, hybrid, cyborg. Now, in a way, we already are. You're carrying your exobrain. How long before that exobrain becomes an endobrain and much more powerful than it is today, and hopefully doing a little bit better stuff than, sending text messages to the person sitting next to you. Come on. And these are, trends that are fascinating to follow, but clearly they can do a lot for healthcare. So I'm looking forward to the presentations that you're going to make, and encourage you to think about, if you're an entrepreneur, there's an awful lot of focus on being a serial entrepreneur, starting companies. One of the things that Pete and I, Pete Nicholas was my partner, still is, and we were looking on building an enterprise, something that would last. It's a different goal. It took a long time. When you think of the timeframes that people talk about now, we were talking about changing the way people looked at less invasive medicine. And most of the people didn't like it at all. But we said, let's find the early adopters. Let's make them partners, not customers. Let's create a wave, if you will, a movement of people thinking about how this can really change the practice of medicine so that it really affects people. Today, BSC serves 24 million people a year. It's an extraordinary number, and it's very humbling. And some of the things that you're talking about may end up that way, maybe even shorter time, and that's what's exciting about it. But think about the idea of how do you take that device and make it not just a device, but in fact a family of tools that enable people to be more effective, health-informed consumers. Anyway, thank you, good luck, and I look forward to hearing your presentations.
Thank you, John. Up next, we have our presentations. But first, you can't have a Shark Tank without sharks, so no offense. I'm going to let our 6 celebrity judges each introduce themselves. So why don't we start from the left, or my left.
Sure. Hi, I'm Christy Weiskill from Johns Hopkins University, and have the great pleasure in that office of running everything related to tech transfer and entrepreneurship. I spent my, now I have a volume. I spent my career as an institutional investor looking primarily at medical device companies.
And I'm Christina Johnson. I spent 25 years in the academy. I'm a recovering academic. I started a couple companies. Some did well, others, well, they were good experiences. And now I'm CEO of a company called Cube Hydro, all about clean energy, and I sit on the board of directors of Boston Scientific.
Hello, I'm Joe Corkery. I'm a product manager here at Google, where I'm leading our healthcare and life sciences efforts on the cloud platform. Prior to Google, I spent a long time in the computational drug discovery space, and I'm a non-practicing physician.
Yeah, hi, my name is Malik Majmudar. I'm a cardiologist at Mass General Hospital and also the associate director of the Healthcare Transformation Lab there, which is actually a new innovation program that we started about 2 years ago that's really focused on how to leverage technology and emerging technologies for care delivery, really focusing on the implementation of technology and validation of it more than just a development part of it. And I also was a founding member and a chief medical officer for a startup out of MIT called Quantis.
Hi, I'm Karen Chase, and I manage programs and operations for the Center for Connected Health, where under the guidance of Dr. Joe Kvedar, we for the last 20 years have been creating and validating technology-enabled solutions to help empower patients and providers change healthcare. Change the way it's delivered and change the outcomes. And I want to give a shout out to a book that's an amazing read called The Internet of Healthy Things by Dr. Kvedar. If you haven't checked it out, I would suggest you do, because it's all about connected health. And he has a lot to say. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Wilson. I'm here from Atlanta. I lead the Global Center for Medical Innovation. We're a nonprofit startup. I've been open about 4 years, based in Atlanta, Georgia. We work with physician entrepreneurs, academic researchers, startup companies to help them basically bring their concepts all the way through, across the journey through to patient care. I came at this from the business side. I started my career in investment banking and management consulting and got into devices from the capital raising standpoint. So I did 2 different medical device companies over a 10-year period and have really experienced all the joy and pain of launching medtech companies. And so we've really created an ecosystem to support that.
Great. Well, thank you all to all of our judges for making time to be here tonight and for helping us choose the winner. So I guess we will move straight on to the presentations of our 6 finalists. First up is Lumira, creating healthier patients with more successful support networks. Welcome, Lumira.
Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games. We got everything you want.
Thanks, everyone, and we are very honored to be here on behalf of Lumira's team and everyone. We are very excited. You know, healthcare is a jungle today. We're seeing it as clinicians, as practitioners, as consumers. There's more and more technologies out there, more and more applications, but are they really adding anything to our health? We have more and more technologies out there today, and never have we been more sicker and unhealthier. So what we want to do is change that. Regardless of where the data sits and where the application is, we can, the Lumira team, resolve that data into practical, actionable information. I'd like to introduce you to our CEO, our co-founder, our chief architect, Sumit Nagpal, who will give us actually the demonstration of our software. Sumit?
Thanks, everyone. It's really great to be here with so many passionate innovators. And John, you just really, you're a very hard act to follow, considering your words, but I will try my best. It's also great to present to such an incredible panel of judges and audience. I'll start off by just telling you who we are. Lumira DX is the 4th in a series of high-growth companies. We started out as self-care, which became Inverness Medical. We created the home diabetes test as Inverness, which we sold to Johnson & Johnson for a bit of money. We then expanded our work into other conditions with Alere, which, as some of you probably know, was sold about 2 or 3 weeks ago to Abbott Labs for about $6 billion. We spun out and launched Lumira DX in 2014, so we're a startup, but a very high-growth startup again, to take all of this learning to bring healthcare into the 21st century on a pretty grand scale. Our vision, in our vision, 21st century care is about moving care into the community and home, away from expensive facilities. It's about extending the care team to include us individuals, our friends and families, our community-based resources, including behavioral health professionals, social care workers. It's about being informed about everything that's happening to us in hospitals, doctors' offices, in our homes. It's about massively increasing use of diagnostics and wearables to proactively identify risk. It's about addressing risk before it creates higher acuity, before it creates higher cost, hardship, and bad outcomes. We begin with our software platform that joins up patient data from across all venues of care, from the doctor's office, into the emergency room, into the hospital, into the home, and makes it available under our consent and control to each person in our extended care team, right into the systems they use, blending right into their woodwork of how they practice medicine. Our platform is open, standards-based, connects with over 80 EHRs, electronic health records, and hospital systems, all the national labs in the US, pharmacy networks, over 500 bedside, home, and activity tracking devices. We pull all that stuff together. Virtually all the systems we will probably see here can talk to us or have the ability to integrate into us. It then relies on a total innovation, a groundbreaking innovation, our point-of-care diagnostics to revolutionize testing, making lab quality results available in primary care and retail settings. We perform up to 16 tests with a single finger stick of blood with lab quality results in 1 to 5 minutes. And we beam that data right into our platform and distribute it wherever it needs to go. We then take this into the home, again, with data flowing effortlessly right into the same platform. We provide inexpensive strips to easily test for comorbidities, strips that we can manufacture in all sorts of configurations. Our wearables then provide context to intervene early, continuous heart rate being analyzed for atrial fibrillation, posture and movement being analyzed for risk of falling for elderly and frail, energy balance being analyzed for type 2 diabetics working to improve their health. Our applications then present all this information to individuals and their care teams via these incredibly easy to use mobile apps. These apps are extensible, so our partners are building add-ons into these. And we also live inside other people's apps. So we're very standards-based in that sense. And the data just flows right into systems used by doctors, nurses, care coordinators, social workers. All of this helps us deliver what we describe as supported self-care, under which individuals become self-determining under the supervision and with the help of their care teams. So why does this matter? Well, some very interesting folks are betting on us for their future. So Richard Branson's Virgin Care are now rolling us out across the UK for each of their 7,000 care managers across a population of over 1 million to help achieve better outcomes and lower costs around chronic conditions. The National Health Service in the UK has recently chosen us to do exactly the same for the entire Greater Manchester City region, 2.9 million people, who will have all of their information available with their consent, under their control, to their care teams, and will be able to test for chronic conditions and primary care tests in retail locations and at home. Virtua Health in New Jersey has been live with us for several years, 1.3 million patients under their care. Each one of these platforms is serious business in its own right, together, seamlessly integrated into an outcomes-based service. They're transformational for us as individuals and for our economies. Thank you.
So now the judges, feel free to ask questions.
Yeah, I'll start. It's hard to believe that you're a startup with doing laboratory diagnostics, remote patient monitoring, data analytics, clinical decision support. So there's a question for you for each of these different verticals within a company. Are your point-of-care diagnostics already CLIA approved and FDA cleared? And then I guess the bigger question is, at the end of the spectrum, are you actually doing clinical decision support? Or what is the actual value added to the customer in terms of how do you manage the patient?
So the company, as you saw from our pedigree, we're even though we're a startup, we're about 2 years old. We really come from a deep well of experience. And so on the diagnostics front, we haven't started from scratch. Our current new generation point-of-care diagnostics are going through CE mark approvals now. We will launch in Europe later this year. They're being clinically validated at major academic centers. We have a big stack of the clinical trials that have been run, true clinical validation of the test results, and we can demonstrate that. Regarding the data platform itself, it's really a 5th generation platform, back to a point that John made, that this is a passion that my partners and I, both on the data and the diagnostic side, have been pursuing with more and more sophistication over the years. And so the 5th generation platform is really where we pull all this together in a far more scalable way than we've ever done before. And off that, yes, we have a very rich clinical decision support engine off this. Yes. I hope I answered your question.
Yep, thank you.
You're doing your pilot in the UK where there's a single payer model. I'm interested in the differences of your trial in New Jersey.
Great.
And then as kind of a follow-up to that, when you're talking about chronic conditions and cardiovascular disease and obesity, and the minority populations and underserved communities where those are very prevalent, how do you bridge that gap?
Fantastic questions. All right, so regarding the pilots themselves and what are the differences, I actually now present I've spoken frequently and presented on this topic about the differences. And what I really present is that healthcare is really, really the same everywhere. We as people are the same. Our biologies are the same. And the incentives that drive behaviors across the continuum, the care providers as you described, the challenges, the competition, the silos, the competitive aspects are all very much the same, even if the payment mechanisms might be a little different. And so we're finding in Europe, across Europe, the same kind of information blocking issues that exist here. The same, and they exist for very similar reasons. Privacy, security, people are worried about for the same reasons. And the solutions actually wind up being very incredibly similar. And that's actually what we've proven in both by essentially taking systems that we had designed here and replicating them in the UK. And we've actually proven that they scale incredibly well into that market. We recently won a contract that's taking us into 12 EU countries. And we have to solve the same information governance, privacy issues, the same silos, and we're finding exactly the same approaches to solving them. They work, right? So I think healthcare is ultimately very, very similar across these economies, regardless of payment mechanisms. So to answer your second question, how do we address chronic conditions, especially in underserved communities and communities with poverty and such? So, it's really kind of incredible what we find in various patches, as they call them, across the UK, in Trenton, New Jersey, in communities both here and there, that, again, the challenges of being identified as somebody who needs care, who's at risk, and then actually getting the right support that you need, and then getting that support in ways that helps you become self-determining. And those are really big challenges, and especially poverty, mental illness, drug abuse interfere with all of those. And so the approach we've taken is holistic. Rather than just throw technology at the problem, rather than just engage with just care providers, traditional doctors, and maybe nurses, community-based nurses, and so on, we've taken a very holistic approach where we believe that these kinds of disparities can be solved if you engage individuals and their friends, their families, their soccer coach, their church leader as a part of the care team. And if you actually focus on behavior change in a holistic manner. Civic bodies become involved in our care, in our model. Social care workers become involved in our care model. They all have access to the record. They all have access to the tools. And that's really how we're addressing these issues.
Okay, I apologize, but we have the 5-minute limit on questions, so thank you, Lumira. I think you may have taken my notes. I should have held on to them. No, also the pamphlet.
It would not look like my handwriting.
Yeah. Slight hiccup. The program that does. It wouldn't be an event without a hiccup. Okay. So thank you very much, Lumira. Our next presentation is CardioTrack, heart monitoring for the last mile.
Good evening. 26 years ago, co-founder of CardioTrack lost his mother to a heart attack. It was swift, it was sudden, and left him bereft of a parent, rather unexpectedly. February 2014, he co-founded CardioTrack, Uber Diagnostics, to provide cardiac healthcare, affordable and accessible cardiac healthcare. 12 months ago, we gave this unit to a doctor in a small clinic in northern India. Subsequently, a single doctor was able to save 4 lives through cardiac diagnostics and subsequent early intervention. Without that intervention, these 4 people would have died. One of those patients is on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. I want you to take that image. He's lying on the floor and he's being diagnosed. That is not terribly uncommon. The facilities in these primary care areas, hospitals, are extremely basic and rudimentary. Heart disease is a primary cause of death in India and in many other countries. At-risk population is almost 60 million today and projected to double by 2020. About 98% of the 1 million primary care physicians do not have access to cardiac diagnostics. Rural areas are terribly underserved. They have to travel 4 hours to get to that very basic diagnostics and healthcare that you saw in the first slide. This presents an incredible opportunity to serve rural areas for cardiac healthcare. Enter CardioTrack. This is a fully clinical grade 12-lead ECG. And it is wirelessly enabled, so its portability factor, you can send it to the patient, so he does not have to travel the 4 hours that you saw in the earlier slide. This tablet captures the ECG in this manner, and it is a 3G-enabled tablet, and sends it to the cloud. And thereby, you no longer need the cardiologist to be present with the patient. The cloud storage enables you to gather history, do data analytics, and even alert the doctor in the event that there's an abnormality. We have changed and we have transformed cardiac diagnostics. So we have formed the Connected Patient now. We have brought urban care, urban quality healthcare to rural patients. Not only that, we have transformed the cost model. Today's ECG scan in India, out of pocket, $10 to $15. Our cost model, $2, 1 order of magnitude lower. By comparison, United States, without insurance, is approximately $1,500. Some milestones: 100 units deployed in 13 countries, so not a fly-by-night operation. We have deployments in these countries, and our most recent deployments have been in Myanmar and Indonesia. Kazakhstan is misspelled there. And executive team with deep bench strength, skin in the game. We have ourselves invested money. Dr. De Jong is writing a book on electrophysiology and ECG, and he has created the ECGpedia and the cardio networks that you can look at. So significant experience in the executive team. Where do we go from here? So I want to leave you with a message for our next steps. Next month, we will be deploying our solution for optimal catheter navigation using this same box with different software and different leads. It's a dual-purpose box. This is a targeted solution, high-margin solution for developed countries. We will be the second company in the world to do so. The first company came out with it maybe 6 months ago. So we are constantly innovating. We are transforming healthcare again. And this would cause us sustainability for our own operations. So we are still looking for investment. I'm looking for $1 million. I'm looking for partners in North America. I'm the contact for North America. And I'll take money, questions, and partners at this point. Thank you.
Excellent. Questions from our judges?
Sir.
So, we actually did a very similar project as part of the MIT Tata Fellowship in India 2 years ago,
Yes,
which is a Holter monitor. One of the challenges I think we ran into at the time is how do you actually do distribution and sales and scale this model? Because you have a single device sold in a clinic.
Right.
What's the business model? Is it a service provider or you just sell the box itself?
So we have both of those. As of today, we have more sales in the outright sale of the box, which is $1,000, which is very cheap. So we go directly to the, to the users, to the doctors, or to the hospital chains. Our model that we have introduced from January, and we have about 5 to 10% now in it, is the revenue sharing model, where we give this unit to the doctor, and we charge them $50 a month. So the doctor earlier could not provide cardiac diagnostics, so he has a new revenue stream. So he's able to make money, and he's able. So we estimate about $200 for the doctor and $50 for us. So that's a very workable model, and it's going to increase going forward because we are going to have more people in that model. That's the favored model, sir.
Have you looked at connecting the remote physicians with remote cardiologists, so you can pair them up, so you can actually have remote providers getting feedback and evaluations elsewhere?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we have done that. So we do provide a reading service, and our cost model is actually $2. And that's still 100. We still make 100% on that. So we do provide a reading service with urban-based cardiologists, since they don't have to be, at the point of presence. Yes, we do. Thank you.
How much does it cost to make the device?
Wow, he gets right into it. Well, it's about $500.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're at 100 units in 13 countries. What's the barrier to becoming 100 million units, ubiquitous, besides money?
Well, that's so we need money to scale, and we did not target. We need FDA approval for United States. That's one thing, but we are very close to it. We believe we can do it with the money, but it's primarily a numbers game. I mean, the scaling model is something that we are working on. We are favoring the revenue model, the revenue sharing model. So it's we don't have a exact answer for you at this time. We're just hitting out to anybody, and we are basically getting to hospital chains. That's how we are doing it. We initially we're targeting this for the rural market, but we found that hospital chains were very interested in it, new hospital chains. And, yeah.
So I got time? Yeah. So what's unique about the device that isn't provided by a mobile phone?
A mobile phone will not do your fully clinical grade 12-lead ECG. So we have an ECG, we have a harness, and.
Well, I mean, could you provide this with a harness and a mobile phone?
We could provide you with a harness and a mobile phone, except that the mobile phone, won't. It won't give you, the reading is limited in a mobile phone. I mean, you can still print it out. We can give you a printout over here. But yes, we can do it on a mobile phone, but we haven't done it on a mobile phone. We believe, the processing, the signal processing, all of that, right now to be specific to this.
So the limitation is the computing power of the device for the signal processing.
It's not it's the interaction with the mobile phone functionality. That's the limiting. And I've been in the mobile phone business, so I will tell you that that's the limiting functionality. It's the interference with the mobile phone functions. So. All right. Thank you very much.
Excellent. So next up, we have a presentation entitled The Magic Wand of Prevention. Where are we?
Good evening. I'm a dentist, and usually my patients come to me and ask me, Doctor, I brush my teeth twice a day. I still have dental problems. Why is it? I actually don't know. Seriously, I don't know. Brushing is taught not by us, but by parents, somebody non-professional. We don't have any stake at your brushing. I'm sorry. Your brushing is the most widely practiced, but the least understood preventive measure. 83.3% Americans and more than 90% Indians, they use manual toothbrushes, but all the modifications, innovations which we have are on powered toothbrushes. So we at Manav Rachna have embarked on a mission to understand people's toothbrushing and the toothbrushing flaws and work with manual toothbrushes and prevent dental diseases. We are introducing Pinak. This is the first Bluetooth device which is attachable to any manual toothbrush. What it does is it records time, technique, force, area covered, and compliance of toothbrushing. Some things are being considered for the first time. It does not end here. The device sends the data on the cloud using an Android app, and the dentist can assess this and formulate some interventions, which he gives back to the user using the same Android app. This is how it works. We have a couple of sensors working there, some start-stop buttons, some timers, and a Bluetooth. It's really feasible and acceptable. There's a strong preference among the respondents they have shown over the other products. A main question that we had was that who pays and how. There are two parts, a software part and a hardware part. We propose that the hardware part payment should be done by the patient and the software part by the dentist. The cost of preventive care, of course, should be borne by the patient, and we are also thinking of taking in loop the insurance as a partial payer. The target market is huge. It'll cater everyone using manual toothbrush. We are concentrating on middle-aged adults first, as dental professionals as well. We are looking for future modifications for children. We are looking for specific diseases like gum diseases. We are looking for specific treatments like braces. Currently, we have a market survey done. The prototype is made and tested, feedback obtained, and the patent is pending. Market environment is 83% manual toothbrush users are our market, with no such product in our market, except for some products which use Bluetooth and are on the powered toothbrushes. We need, our challenges will be testing clinical efficacy, improvement in app feature, miniaturizing the thing, and improvement in device design, for which we would need continuous upgradation of our center. The projected costs are about $19. The total cost per unit, which we are thinking of, is $23. And as we have projected, if it takes off, there should be a good future for this product. Finally, I would conclude by saying that this is an accessible, universally useful, cloud-based disruptive innovation which brings an uninsured, expensive disease into the prevention loop. We have a big project team which helps us in this. Thank you. I would like to invite Dr. Meena here.
I have a question.
And Dr.
So I guess I was one of the lucky ones that switched to an automated toothbrush about 4 years ago. But the question really is, so if I understand it correctly, it's monitoring your brushing pattern. It doesn't actually make you brush smarter. So why wouldn't somebody just switch over to an automated toothbrush if it's $20? Like, what's the cost difference between the smart toothbrushes versus connecting it to your sensor, detecting the things, but does it give you feedback? Does it actually improve? And have you proven that it actually makes a difference?
Most of us know that we have to brush twice. Most of us don't. We need interventions. We need behavioral interventions. Just telling things won't work. Telling things professionally will work.
And second thing is that when you are talking about the cost, it will be that it is a device. It's not a power brush. Power brush can be used only by one person, but in this, the device can be used by the family. So what we are planning to do, it will bring the cost. It will be for the whole of the family.
What we are primarily doing is we are making a normal brush into a smart brush. So that's what, at a cost which is probably equivalent, but it can be used by everybody, and the family cost gets divided. So you're not looking at $20. You're looking at $20 by the family.
So, I mean, I think you got to an interesting point about, the efficacy. Like, for instance, like you say that the professional giving you advice is stick here, but every time I go to the dentist, they ask me how often I floss, and I always shamefully look down and say not often enough. And every time they say you need to floss more, but and I do for the first week, and then I forget because I go on a trip and I forget to bring floss with me, and it never changes my behavior. And I feel like I should be a good patient. I'm pretty well educated, and I know it's good for me, but I don't do it still. I mean, how do you plan to tackle that?
We plan to bring in behavioral interventionists into the loop. That's why I talked about dental team, the provider team, not only dental team, but the provider team. That means there are going to be more than one professional in the team. It's not just dentist, it's dentist plus other professionals. That's all.
What we see it as is the big boss is watching you. So there's this guy there, and he's looking at you that you're doing it right, and you're doing it properly, and you're following the protocol. That's it.
And also people who will be buying will be the people who are motivated towards this thing. So they want to do it.
Is there any room for educational opportunities within your packaging once they get this device at home?
Yes, it is there. We are making a section of tutorials, and in tutorials we will be teaching them the sequence of brushing also and how to do it. And presently we are looking towards for the adults, in which there is a particular technique, we call it modified Bass method, that is wriggle and down method, which is actually had not been followed in any of your power brushes even. They do take the time and the pressure but do not consider the technique. So we are following particularly for the adults, and then we will be, that's why the further modification of the children, because the technique is different than for the teenagers, and then is for the braces and for the specific disease. So every time the technique is different. So we are following the technique. This is the first time.
You see, actually, nobody has actually taught us to brush, It's like we've learned it from our probably parents or brothers, sisters, So this is a professional way of somebody who's teaching you. There's going to be an app in which the app will demonstrate how brushing has to be done. And probably that can be replicated by the patient and followed it to his benefit.
I think one of the points that was brought up is quite interesting, is how do you get feedback? So I'm wondering, could you integrate a timer? Could you integrate a haptic feedback so that if you're not brushing in the right area, you get a signal?
We already have that.
You have that. Okay, great.
So question for you, is it a prototype or is it in production? How many have you sold? What stage is it?
It is still in the prototype stage.
This is the size we have.
We are looking for miniaturizing it.
Oh, got it.
So that is why in our current accomplishment we are told that it is in very miniature stage. It is like we are trying to do it.
We want something that can be fit as a sleeve on this, so that everybody can, use it and use it like a normal brush, and still somebody else in the family can also use it.
So with any kind of a brush, it should fit.
So I'm still trying to really understand what market you're targeting. You mentioned the 83% middle adults, but then you've also said that you need behavioral interventions. Well, what kind of behaviors are you really, trying to get to? What specifically is the target market? Because it can't all be all those adults. What are the specific behaviors you're targeting?
It is, not everybody would be needing that behavioral interventions. It'll be the doctor or the dentist. He would tell that who needs a behavioral intervention and who does not. The market essentially is all people who use a manual toothbrush. Everybody. Some of those people might be referred to a behavioral interventionist. Some of those people might not be referred to a behavioral interventionist. It depends on the gravity of the situation, actually.
We feel, I think, toothbrushing is the basic thing that everybody does, but probably doesn't do it right. And it's if you do it right, then dental disease is preventable. So that's what we want to target. We want to make it cheap. We want everybody to be able to use it. And that's where our
and it'll bring the cost of, I think the dental disease is one of the most costliest disease to treat. So it'll bring the cost down.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so we are halfway through our presentations, 3 more to go. The next up is called Watch RX. So I'm guessing wristwatch and prescription. We'll find out.
That was A.R. Rahman for you all. So, hi. So, how many of you have aging parents? Yeah, so chances are they are confused with their meds, they need help, they're frustrated with their smartphone, but still want to live independently. So imagine a device that's solving all of this in one place. So say hello to WatchRx. I'm Arun, and that's my partner Jayanti. We are founders of WatchRx, where we are making a watch that's also a phone and a GPS to help seniors take their meds on time. So medication adherence is a $290 billion problem where 7 million seniors or more are taking 10 plus meds every day. 20% of the US will be 65 plus by 2030, mostly women widowed living alone. Now, top reasons for non-adherence among seniors include forgetting to take meds, and it's just way too complex. So what's out there to help them? Mostly mobile apps. Don't even talk about mobile apps to seniors. No. So the rest of the solutions are very expensive, difficult to use, and you got to be near them to even hear the reminders. So they're tough to use. So what are we doing? Well, we're building a watch that's also a phone and a GPS that shows the medication name, image, the dosage, along with voice instructions. And all they have to do is just tap to say they've taken it. Now, the watch is also a phone. So which means it can be used for emergency calls when they're not feeling well, they've fallen down, they can't get up. And the watch also collects 250 plus real-time behavioral data points every day, which our machine learning system uses to learn their behavior every day, and then find out if there's an anomaly and alert their family members in time. So we've built a few prototypes over the last year. You're seeing the second version here. I have a few more as well. Now, I said don't talk about apps with seniors. Wonder why? Because smartphones and seniors do not go well. They're very, very limited usage among seniors, and it's way too complex and just causes frustration. So don't even talk about apps. Now, who are we targeting? 93% of seniors live in their homes alone, mostly alone, but taking a lot of meds and a lot of times confused. There are 20 million of you taking care of someone 75 plus. Half of you are working full-time, juggling your work, your family, and caregiving, causing a loss in productivity of staggering $33 billion annually. Now, most of these seniors are covered by Medicare. In spite of that, almost half of caregivers spend more than $5,000 every year, and 11% of them spend more than $20,000. I mean, think about that. And then just by helping these seniors take their meds on time can help save over $100 billion every year. So we've been talking, we're in partnership discussions with a major telco, a major pharmacy. We got covered in Boston Globe, so 2 major hospitals in the Boston area have reached out to us. Discussions are ongoing, and a major Fortune 100 company has reached out for distribution in Europe and the US. We've conducted focus groups, large focus groups at senior centers across several cities here in the Boston area. Competition doesn't stack up with the kind of features that we provide and the price point. And the competition is also really expensive for the limited functionality. In fact, one potential consumer reached out to us on the website, and we spoke to them yesterday, and he said, wow, I can't tell you what all you covered, the falling device, as well as medication reminders, all of that in one device. We sell the watch for $99, the basic, and you can't see the price there. The premium is $149, and the monthly is $19, $29, and $39. We want to start with consumer first, and then take the time to integrate with hospitals. The $29 and the $39 gets you the early warning system, the machine learning system I mentioned, as well as the GPS tracking. And the $39 gets you the Bluetooth tracking. This will act as a hub to collect vitals like heart rate, blood pressure from the regular devices already in the home and connect with the doctors and pharmacy. just between me and Jayanti, we have 50 years of experience in innovation, leadership, and solid execution in launching products both to US market as well as emerging markets, especially in the consumer space, in IoT, home automation technologies. Now, just this morning, Jayanti won the 2016 Women to Watch Science and Technology Award by Boston Business Journal. How cool is that? Woohoo! And we won a few competitions so far. We've also been covered by Boston Globe. We are currently raising $1.5 million in seed funding to go to market.
Thank you. Thank you.
A quick question. So I understand how the watch addresses the issue of medication reminders.
Yeah.
But how do you address the issue of medication complexity? If someone's on 11 or 12 different meds, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
I mean, how many reminders a day are they getting? And the second is, what's the battery life of the actual watch?
Yeah. So second question first. The battery life is a couple of days. And we expect the seniors, we spoke to them during focus groups. They just use the magnetic charge, just snaps on the back, and it takes about just a little more than an hour to charge. So that's fine. In terms of complexity, we are also talking to the pharmacy, as I mentioned, and we're also talking next week to a geriatric pharmacy in Chicago. So yes, the reminders would be one after the other. If they're taking 10 meds, it would show them. But through the focus groups, it's only that it's beneficial for them. Now, we've also found that there's a majority of seniors, in fact, a lot of people we interact with, they say, oh, just this morning I went to my 90-year-old mom and I set up this box, which is the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, AM and PM. So it would just say which slot to open. So I'm just going to show.
Okay. From your pill pack, open the Thursday noon slot. Make sure you have 4 medications. Tap anywhere to confirm you have taken them.
So, I'm sorry. It's customizable. Yeah, absolutely. So, just going to silence that. So, yeah, and if they don't respond to this one, we, as I said, 250 plus real-time behavioral data points, right? So we know if they're wearing, they're not wearing, are they active when the reminder comes up, are they inactive? So based on that, it asks for a few times, snoozes, keeps doing that until for the hour, and if they still don't respond, sends the alert to their daughter or son, who would have our companion mobile app through which they stay connected in real time. It's like a Facebook kind of a feed where they keep getting updates. They've taken, are they active, are they inactive, those kind of things.
So how do you set it up? Like, how do you set up like your pill profile and what you need to take every day?
Yeah, so initially, until we integrate with the pharmacy and EHR providers, it is manual. It is manual. You can scan.
Through the phone or through?
Through the phone. There's no setup on the watch. The watch talks to our system. So the way this we would sell in the market is, let's say, retail pharmacy or through our website. They would order the watch. It'll still be in the box. They download the app, and then they set it up manually. They can take pictures of the pill. Initially, it's manual. Once we integrate, it's all automatic. Once they set it up, our system gets it. They turn on the watch. The watch knows which one to download, and it sets it up automatically, completely with the schedule on the watch.
And just following on, like, is there a way to basically, it sounds like there's an option to confirm that you've taken the pill. Is there a way to say that you haven't, or that there's a problem, like, or that you can't? Because it seems like the only option to make it go away is to say, yes, I've taken the pill, as opposed to, like, I don't have them, or I dropped it, or, the cat ate it, or something.
Yeah, so it's a great question, right? So we've gone through several iterations of this. So in terms of when the reminder comes up, so I'm going to show you that quickly. So you can see the picture, the name, the dosage, all of that right there. It's too small.
Anywhere to confirm you have taken them.
So once you get that, what we are doing is, initially the first revision had a button there. We said the very first revision back in June, they had to double tap it to confirm. So after a lot of these focus groups, they said, no, don't put a double tap, don't even put a button. They said because of dexterity issues, they may not be able to touch there. So they said, just take it out, keep it simple, tap to confirm. Now, to answer your specific, in the next version, we are adding NFC in the watch, and that's why we want to partner with pharmacy. The pill bottle would have the tag, the right ones, and it's all configured. They take the bottle and tap it on the watch to say, yes, I've taken it, rather than just touching it. So that's the confirm. But to say that, hey, I don't want to take it now, they can just let it go. It'll ask for a few times and then snooze. So it gives them that 10-minute gap for them to recover.
I don't want to hug the mic.
So 2 questions about compatibility. If there are seniors who actually choose to use their phone for some reason and don't want to wear the watch, or have a watch that they really like and don't want to use it, do you have an option where they could use their smartphone, number 1? And number 2, there are obviously a number of other smart watches on the market. Is there an ability to use what's the compatibility? Could they use their existing watch and have your app?
Yeah, so in talking technical terms, this is actually an app that's running on here. So the same app can go onto if they have a Samsung watch or the other watch. But now the problem is smartwatches are very, very rare among seniors. So I'll be surprised. In all our focus groups, no one has had it. Now, forget smartwatches, even smartphones. So I don't know what smartwatches, but smartphone, yeah. We don't want to compete in that space, but if they already have smartphones, of all the focus groups, we had maybe 1 senior or 2 senior who's like 85 years old. Oh, I have an iPhone. I'll just use this one. Oh, I got all this. So she was very updated with technology, and she loved using iPhone. So no problem. But we want to target this by keeping the app can also be there on the phone. So yes, it's portable even there. But we are targeting this to begin with because that's the big market.
I just noticed that it's a sort of a big watch, and I'm thinking of a lot of frailer, smaller, elderly ladies.
Okay. So.
Okay. And is there room for another form factor, a pendant, or something that's not as?
That's one of the most popular requests in our focus groups. Yeah. So what you're seeing here, I'm just gonna go back a little bit. Sorry. If you see what I'm holding here is our second prototype. This is, and in our current prototype, we've cut down the weight by half. It's much lighter than the iWatch, the Apple Watch as well. And this, through feedback, majority of them wanted gold or silver. With I can't go into specifics. I don't want others to build it. So, yeah. But then, yes, we are evolving, and this is an early prototype. We just got this, so we haven't set it up yet. And we are evolving towards making it better based on the focus groups.
Can I ask?
Sure.
What about voice recognition instead of tapping?
Okay, so technology, can I do? Oh, absolutely. I've written software myself to do home automation. Hey, can you shut the door, right? But practically, it's, Amazon Echo is there in the room and you tell it to play. But getting that, it just complicates things. I know I've been there with seniors. We can do that. Can I do that? Yes, but we want to keep things simple. Because how would you say, hey, watch? If someone else is saying that, then it keeps coming up. I've built those systems, so.
The only feedback you have right now is to tap. So like if you had like, I lost, I can't find the pill, or I lost the pill, or some other mechanism to, besides the tap.
Yeah, so again, going back to that, so this is, again, based on all the feedback we've gotten in 6 months to say, keep it simple, but if they've lost it or if it's fallen down, they just don't tap and leave it there. It'll ask 2-3 times and then snooze. It'll snooze. Let's say they've taken 2 pills out of 8 pills, and they don't tap the third one, and it lasts for 3 times and snooze for 10 minutes. So they get another 10-15 minutes to go do something, and it'll start at the third one saying, hey, these are the pills you got to take. Yeah. Yeah, they can always press this to call their son or daughter and talk.
If they miss a dose entirely and they miss the repeat messages, and then it's the next morning.
Yeah.
And they're due for another dose, a new dose.
Yeah.
Does that automatically override the dose they missed? Or does it pick up and say, you missed yesterday's and you have today is waiting in the wings. What are we going to do?
So every prescription comes with its own time limit. If there's something, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know if you miss a med, are there any meds where if you miss, oh, go ahead, club it with the next one and take it? I don't know if there are any. If there aren't, the way we've set up is that it's time bound. If they don't take it beyond, it just goes in an alert to say they've taken it. So the next one, next morning, it's only that dose.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Our next presentation is Quantified Care, Multimedia Monitoring, Management, and Engagement.
All right, good evening. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Batista with Quantified Care. Thank you for being here this evening. I actually did my undergrad work down the street at MIT, so I'm happy to be back in Cambridge today. So at Quantified Care, our team brings together some great backgrounds with clinical, business, and engineering expertise from Johns Hopkins, Harvard, and MIT, as well as some great domain knowledge from businesses like Practice Fusion, WellDoc, and the Office of the National Coordinator for Health IT on the policy side. We also have a fairly creative team. I'll say a quick shout out to Tom. The song I walked into is actually from his band. And we have some great supporters and backers, like investors on the West Coast, like 500 startups, and on the East Coast from the state of Maryland from the TEDCO TCF Fund. So at Quantified Care, our mission is to create the simplest technologies for patient engagement, monitoring, and management that do two things: enable patients to better proactively take charge of their health, and enable clinical organizations, our clients, to deploy care to those patients who need care most when they need it most. Now, we do this to solve the challenge of gaps in patient care. We know today that patients only spend about 12 minutes per clinical visit with their doctor. It's not a lot of time. We also know that as a result, patients end up spending about 80% of their time managing their health alone without any sort of support during these gaps in care. And so in combination with the increase in chronic diseases, more emphasis on the policy side on value-based care, we're seeing an increase in this market for remote patient monitoring or care outside the four walls of the clinic. And that's where Quantified Care plays a role. Now, we play a role with our software platform that has 3 tiers to it: engage, manage, and monitor. Now, I'll make the point now, and I'll show you again at the end. All 3 tiers are driven through what we call our multimedia communication suite. We recognize that patients engage with technology in many different ways. And so while we began with an app, we've now diversified so that patients can engage through text, email, phone calls, really whatever works best for them. So let's look inside this a little bit. So behind the system sits our clinical intelligence engine, as you might expect. It has algorithms, content, and integrations. A key piece to the engine for us is having it being very modular. We recognize that many of the large enterprise groups that we now work with don't have the ability to work with a bunch of small companies to tackle all the different challenges that their patient population might be dealing with. And so we've built a system where we can build our own clinical content. We have a team of clinical analysts, but we also bring in third-party content and algorithms when appropriate that allows the platform to be scalable to the different heterogeneous conditions patients are dealing with our clients. Now, moving to the front end, we first have Engage. So Engage is meant to be just kind of that first entry level that a clinical organization might take to get their feet wet with digital health. Basically, it's an outbound content platform where these organizations can send out our content, make their own custom content, set up campaigns. It's based on the idea that there's a lot of studies out there that show that simple follow-up, even after, say, a transplant or some sort of event at the hospital, does a good job in keeping patients on track with their health and actually improves health outcomes. Beyond this value, we also see value in this and every tier, actually, in being able, in allowing these clinical organizations to be more present with their patients after they've left the system. The benefits are patient satisfaction, better patient retention, and ultimately better brand loyalty for these organizations. And again, this is the first kind of light tier for the system. Moving up the tier to 2, we have Manage. Now in Manage, we're building upon that outbound content system by getting data in from our patients. We provide structured health assessments, again, not just through the app like you see here, but through any form of media, where we capture symptoms data, vitals data, med-adherence data. For the vitals, we integrate with the world of connected technology. We pull in data from scales, blood pressure cuffs, whatever is out there that might be collecting information from the patients. The goal is to get as much information as passively as possible, and from that, ask more questions to the patient when necessary to figure out how they're doing. Now we can provide content to patients that's more personalized, more contextual to the condition that they're actually dealing with. And so this tier allows clinical organizations to now begin focusing not just on all their patients, but now on their high risk, which are typically their high cost patients, and really start to see how they can move the needle, which ultimately achieves both cost savings from the short-term cost savings and long-term cost avoidance perspective. And then we have our third tier. The third tier is kind of our Cadillac version. It's everything together and the patient engagement and data collection side, but now integrated into the clinical system. We have a standalone portal, but we also have the ability to do integrations into various clinical systems like EMRs. And the data that we capture has some analytics around it. We stratify patients based on risk into high, medium, and low risk categories. It goes back to our mission, identifying those patients who need care most and helping the clinical organization deploy care to those patients. We also have triggers built into the system that allow different clinical assets to be activated when necessary to respond to a patient's care. And finally, there's a secure messaging layer built in, which is great for patients who are stressed and concerned about their condition to have the peace of mind that someone's available to help when issues do come up. Now, the platform itself is, again, topped off by our multimedia communication layer, where we're able to allow patients to interact in the ways that work best for them. At this point, our system is complete. We're beginning to roll out our platform with a number of small clinics, and I'm happy to say we actually do work with a local group, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts. Thank you for your time. Happy to take questions.
Mike, great presentation. One of the troubles with the Quantified Care, one of the things I've noticed is it's a very competitive, saturated market.
Sure.
There's at least 10 plus companies who have a combination of the asynchronous care platform, which is two-way communication through an app, the digital devices being connected,
sure,
Validic or human API,
sure,
and then providing a dashboard for our population health management. So what is the kind of the uniqueness of this, of the value proposition? How have you kind of convinced customers to sign on?
Sure. So I guess I'll use a use case here. So when we went into some of these large enterprise clients, we were actually, in one instance, coming in with 40 other companies trying to go after a contract that we did end up securing. And the way we differentiated ourselves in that scenario was we basically said, look, we know that all these different companies have different solutions around diabetes, congestive heart failure, hypertension. They're going to do good for that one condition, but you're not going to be able to work with each of them. You need a single platform that scales because you have a lot of different patients. They have a lot of different conditions. We also have the ability to do comorbidities, so we can look at not just a CHF patient, but a CHF patient with hypertension. While that patient might have the ability to use two separate apps that two other companies built for those diseases, better would be for them to have one platform where we're looking at analytics from both sides and providing tailored content based on both those perspectives. And so that's the value that we believe we can differentiate against those types of organizations, and those organizations actually become our partners potentially. For example, we had an enterprise client who asked about falls. We know that data from phones can look at falls. We don't do that right now. But we do have a partner company that has that kind of algorithm, has that kind of content, and they're having trouble selling into large enterprise because they do one specific thing. And so we're now looking to partner with them to bring it into our platform and provide value to our enterprise clients in that way.
How often are the health assessments pushed?
Sure. So the assessments were pushed depending on the disease state in a regular manner. So, for example, with hypertension patients, at least with the groups that we've worked with so far, the clinical organization has that set up to go out about twice a week. With our congestive heart failure patients being a bit higher risk, that actually ends up going out once a day. And for CHF, just to build on that, we do know that some conditions, there are timeliness factors. With CHF, you want to do wait in the morning before you've had meals and whatnot. So the system does look at the data points when they come in and can make decisions based on, did this actually come in the morning? Should we evaluate it based on that? Or is it later in the day? And really, we shouldn't be looking at some of those standards of care based on that. So there's some decisions built in.
And so are those decisions, is it an algorithm that does that based on the data coming in? Or is there someone sitting on the other end saying,
sure,
this is your tailored solution? And to that point, too, who's looking at it? Is it going to the primary care doctor? Is it going to the cardiologist? Is it going to both? Are they talking to each other?
Good questions. So the first point, there is an algorithm that sits behind it that is basically built on standards of care. But we know that clinical organizations manage patients in different ways. And so on our kind of third tier, the full version, the clinical organization is able to go in and modify the standard of care on a per-patient basis if they want to, so that different triggers would trigger differently based on how that patient is known to behave or known to respond. Now, your second question on who actually uses this. So we do recognize that this is not something that goes into your primary care doctor, your specialty doctor. This is really, and this is exactly where it's in use today, or becoming in use today, with home care groups, care management teams, care coordination teams. The assets that exist today for care management, but don't always have the technical resources to do it as effectively or as efficiently as they might like. Now, when we do some of those integrations, we are able to trigger other assets in the network, but the actual data that comes in is primarily viewed by those types of organizations or pieces from the organization.
So just to be clear, so the main engagement model there is not the physician communicating directly with the patient.
Correct. It's that clinical care team, like the home care group or the case management team. That's the direct communication.
So in terms of business model, then, are you using like the chronic telehealth codes, or are you just selling it to ACOs, or how are you?
Right now, we're primarily selling it to ACOs and insurance companies, which are paying on a per active member per month basis. Correct. We do know that there's some of those new codes coming out, and we do have some smaller practices that we work with that in the next couple of months we'll be seeing if we can do a coding on it.
How does it collect the biometric data? Then does it bring their own device, or who?
Sure. So it's a bring your own device model. Patients, especially in our older population, and again, those populations aren't always using the app. Again, they're sometimes using the lower communication tools. Either they manually enter the data or we capture the data from their connected technologies. And so if they have so let's just use an example. CHF patient has a scale. We found in our focus groups that pretty much every CHF patient has a scale, not always a connected scale. If it's a manual scale, we do ask them to enter the data. That is a prompt. If it's a connected scale, we just passively pull that data in by looking at the API from the device that we've integrated with. And so we don't have to always ask them what the information is if we already know it. And that's where the system is trying to be simple and as non-intrusive as possible, at least. And on the integrations piece, on the med side, I'll make the point, we integrate with PBMs, pharmacy benefits management companies. So similar to what we saw previously or in the other presentation, medical images, yes, no, did you take them? They don't have to enter the medications themselves.
Michael, how do you measure efficacy? How do you know that you're making a difference?
Sure. So we look at a few different key performance indicators with the groups that we work with. One is activation on the system, how often the patients are coming in and utilizing the platform or responding to the information that's coming in. When we push content out, we have every once in a while, we ask the patient, was this valuable, was this not valuable? And in that way, we can begin to educate what content's actually important. We have a clinical analyst team that's constantly making vivid content, I guess I'll say. On the other side, we work with the clinical organizations to look at the actual health data that comes in when they come back into the clinic for a visit, see how that's trending over time. And with the healthcare organizations, we do look at claims improvements. We are still kind of newer in the market, though, so I don't have the numbers for you yet, but we do have some objectives we'll be moving towards that I can talk about afterwards, if you'd like. Thank you.
Excellent. So finally tonight we have one more presentation from one of our finalists, and this one is called MAIN System, with MAIN stands for Monitored Adaptive Integrated Neuromodulation. So welcome, MAIN System.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here today. I'd like to talk about the Monitored Adaptive Integrated Neuromodulation System. I'm very excited to talk to you about this today. I want to give a quick shout out to the other person who helped create this, Dr. Corey Reeves. As we all know, pain is a very unique thing. All our pain is different. No one has the pain that's the same. Your pain, my pain is different. So the MAIN system looks to individualize a treatment protocol for pain. Here's a shocking number. $635 billion a year are lost due to pain costs a year. Just to put that in perspective, there's only 18 countries in the world that have a GDP higher than that number, which is kind of shocking when you think about it. Furthermore, in the United States, there's an epidemic of prescription drug overdose. As we know, we watch TV and we see all over the place how many patients are dying in our communities. To put that in perspective, there's 37,000 deaths a year just to prescription overdose, compared to 36,000 deaths due to motor vehicle accidents. So this is where I think the MAIN system comes in, and where we can kind of leverage spinal cord stimulation. So spinal cord stimulation is a proven treatment for pain. It's been present for 50 years, and it's kind of analogous to how a pacemaker helps the heart. Think of the pacemaker helps a malfunctioning heart. Spinal cord stimulation helps a malfunctioning nervous system. So how do we choose these patients? Well, we first have to do a trial. So after these patients are seen in clinic, we perform our physical exam, and these patients are identified. And once these patients are appropriately identified, we go ahead and place a temporary stimulator percutaneously in their epidural space and connect that to an external generator, okay? After 5 days, depending on how much pain relief they've had, typically that's 50%, they can be a candidate for a generator implant. It's kind of thinking about leasing before you buy. Unfortunately, the current guidelines of 50% doesn't really look into function. So we're also missing a lot of patients who really could use it. And at the same time, are we putting patients at risk who are getting an implant that never really needed it? So let me briefly talk about a story about a patient that we had. She had neck cancer, had it resected, had intractable neck pain. And we went ahead and did a trial. Unfortunately, her pain only went down 30%. So that was kind of a failure there. But the next day, she was at Disney World, with her family, having, going back to her daily functions. It's kind of important to see that this could have been a missed opportunity to make a meaningful difference in a patient's life. So what is the main system exactly? Well, we propose a wearable foot or hand bracelet that records physical activity, heart rate, sleep quality and quantity, and at the same time, it allows the patient to place their pain location scores 5 times throughout the day. In addition, patients who have taken opioid therapies, they can enter when they use the medications. This entire time, this is seamlessly communicated with a stimulation device that's attached to the generator to kind of give a personal treatment protocol for these patients. So pre-trial, before they even get the trial, they'd wear the main system for a few weeks to get a baseline function and pain data. They'll also continue to wear that during the stimulation trial as well, during those 5-day periods, hopefully to record function and to see how they do with the pain stimulator. At the completion of the trial, it also allows to compare the results, in addition to using hard data, but also use subjective pain scoring. In the end, we hope to use this main system to individualize appropriate candidates for implant, and at the same time resulting in improved outcomes for these patients. So what's the future, Doc? Marty would say. Well, I think after definitive implant is completed, we can use the main system to really provide an individual treatment for these patients. For example, a patient who has intractable back pain, it's worsened by flexing. It would have communicated that information from the information that we'd gathered to the stimulator device, so it knows when to give that pulse generator. So it'd give a burst to essentially help alleviate that patient's pain. And I think as we move forward, medicine's becoming more personalized. It's no longer cookie cutter medicine where one tablet fixes everything. There is no magic pill. So we really need to think outside the box and find a way to really provide innovative solutions to these patients with intractable pain. Thank you.
Questions?
If I can follow up on the last statement, by the way, nice presentation. On the personalized medicine and no one's pain is the same, can you do an inverse transform to selectively change the waveform, or how complex are the stimulation waveforms, 1? And 2, pain often tells us there's something we ought to pay attention to. So I'm not sure, maybe you wouldn't want to get rid of all of it, but how selective can you be to the particular pain points?
Well, for example, if you have a patient who's having pain going down their legs, typically you would place those stimulator leads at a specific level on, let's say, your thoracic spine or your back. So specifically for that pain, you would know it would cover, let's say, your right leg. As far as the settings, different companies have different types of settings, whether it's waveforms, frequency, and what we're trying to do is to get a baseline function of these events, so it's becoming more personalized. So essentially, the generator itself is even thinking before what the patient's doing. For example, if I'm playing golf and that always causes leg pain, well, it's going to kind of figure that out and hopefully provide that stimulator impulse at that time to kind of relieve that pain.
So there's 20 different waveforms, 100 different waveforms, 1,000. I mean.
Well, there's a lot of waveforms. I don't know the specific waveform for each pain because there's the software in every single program is different. So, for example, in the United States, well, in Europe, they use short bursts, so different waveforms that look like the waveforms we would feel with pain. That's not really indicated here in the United States, so depending on the waveform and FDA approval, it would depend on the device or the manufacturer.
Thanks.
Have you looked at any of the kind of healthcare economic impact of, if you add this program in and you have more personalized delivery of the neuromodulation, what the cost savings to the system?
I haven't done the the logistics of that. it would be more anecdotal because I feel like, when you're in clinic, you see these patients in the front line and you're like, wow, I can't believe this patient got an implant. This is the absolutely wrong patient that we spent, like, let's say $100,000 on. And then we have this lady who only had 30% relief going to Disneyland who were just struggling to get an implant in. So that in itself, I think, just getting better patients, better outcomes would, obviously help decrease the cost of pain.
So as you pointed out, it's a fairly invasive procedure.
It is.
And very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
How many people are realistically candidates to receive this?
Well, this is a select population. Right now, it's clinically indicated for here in the United States for lumbar radiculopathy, failed back surgery syndrome, complex regional pain syndrome. So very specific diagnosis. We work at a cancer center, so we're kind of allowed to kind of be more liberal in who we put the implants in. So that kind of helps. It is an invasive procedure. I would say most patients do well. Some of them fail the trial, unfortunately, but that's good. You don't want to put that in that patient.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think it sounds great. I'm just the $635 billion market is probably a very small fraction of that market, and how you would quantify that.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
One quick question. So, given that the actual product is a stratification tool at the end of the day,
yes,
who's your actual customer? Is it the hospital system, or is it actually the device manufacturer? Who are you actually?
We'd like to couple with a device manufacturer to hopefully kind of leverage, the knowledge that they have already, with our idea to help, make this more accessible to patients.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. All right, so that was our 6 finalist presentations, and now is the point in the program where I take our judges off to the conclave, and while they're doing that, you will be entertained to over here, sorry, with an excellent presentation from Heidi Does of Google Cloud Platform.
Yes, thank you. All right, judges, you've got your work cut out for you. I am absolutely thrilled to be here. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. This is really special for me because I have a lot of the people that mean the most to me in this room. And hopefully my presentation will explain why that is. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about data empowering patients. And which way do we need to? There we go. Well, that's backwards. What am I supposed to be aiming at, you guys? Oh, the big, the big green button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about my 30-year journey as a professional heart patient. I was one of those kids that was fortunate to grow up playing sports. I played soccer, I was a swimmer, ran track in high school. I was a competitive skier and was racing on the World Cup circuit in windsurfing. And I was 19 years old, I was having a blast. And the one thing though is I could never figure out how to take my pulse. All those years when you're in PE and the PE teacher says, hey, okay, for the next 20 seconds, we want you to count those things. I couldn't figure out how people counted those things. Because it turns out 270 beats per minute is like not really easy to count, especially when it's irregular. When I was 19 years old, I had my first EKG. I was actually in the hospital because I was going to have knee surgery, to have a surgery to kind of clean up the mess I had made out of my knees from all of the other sports I was playing. And as part of the surgery prep, had an EKG and out spits the strip, and the nurse's eyes get really big. Next thing you know, she's calling the doctor in, and all of a sudden my knee surgery is canceled, and I'm off to the CCU. Because it turns out that I had a really rare arrhythmia and ended up having an AV ablation. I was one of the first humans to have an AV ablation back in 1983. And that's back when they used basically DC current. It kind of went in and they took out the whole mess, and that left me 100% pacemaker dependent. So here I am, I'm 19 years old. I've just had my AV node ablated. And I was kind of trying to figure out if I'd ever wear a swimsuit again, because here it is. I'm going to be 100%, pacemaker dependent. I'm going to have this pack of cigarettes in my chest. And I'd never seen one in another person. So this whole process of being diagnosed, I wasn't even aware I was a heart patient. So it was pretty traumatic to find out that I wasn't a healthy athlete anymore, that instead I was dependent on a device and this, needing to go in for this treatment. And then how do you get your life back? Who was I going to be now? And so this is the part that our healthcare system right now doesn't do a very good job of. And that is, once you get past the diagnosis, the treatment, and the measurable outcome, how do you take that to the patient's perspective of, I want my life back, and I want a life that is meaningful for me? And how do we teach people to have the desire to get that life back, because it's hard? And for me, it meant setting goals, and I needed some tools, because the goals I wanted to set, which I had a bike race, I was all excited to go race, and there, that picture of me in treatment was first day of training. But I needed the tools to be able to collect the data, and then I needed a support community. I needed other people that were like me, that had already been there before me. So part of the tools that I had and I needed to go from a patient in a hospital bed to a cyclist going across the finish line, I have my Boston Scientific pacemaker. I'm on my 7th device, so I've been at this for a long time. And every year, or every device I get, I have better heartbeats, smoother heartbeats, more technology. It does cool stuff. And now I have the Latitude communicator, which passively collects that information, all those signals that are embedded in this device implanted in my chest. That it collects that information. It makes that information available to my physicians. I don't have to worry anymore so much about, oh my gosh, is everything working as intended? This idea that the fear builds up because you don't know what's going inside. And that's where having something as simple as a heart rate monitor on my wrist helps me to know, am I still safe? What is my heart doing? And then, of course, as an athlete, my Wahoo Kicker X has all kinds of power sensors, cadence, and all this other kind of stuff. And that's where I've now gone beyond the patient interesting data, but now I'm looking at the data that's interesting as an athlete. So what do these devices offer? For me, the most important part is this window inside of what's happening. In the early days, when I didn't know what was going on and we didn't have all these great wearable technologies, I had to depend on using my Polar heart rate monitor for cycling to wear it around the house whenever I felt funny to see if anything was wrong. It gives me that opportunity to say, okay, everything's working as intended. And I also now can collect data and have actual information that I can have a better discussion with my care team. I'm not going in saying, gosh, I sort of feel like X, and the doctor's like, well, I don't know how to treat your feelings. Can you give me more info? So we've now streamlined the ability to treat whatever's going on, because we're actually talking about real live data points. And then there's this idea that the lifestyle part, that other part that's important to the patient, it's about the care, the community, the peer-to-peer sharing of, hey, this is what worked for me. What turns out is many of our physicians haven't actually had the procedures you're going under and having. The best people to kind of tell you about, what to do next are oftentimes the people in your community. And the biggest thing is this overcoming fear, because when you've been diagnosed and you've had a treatment, you become hypersensitive to every heartbeat that's going on in your chest. So if you can instead stop the counting every heartbeat and instead know that you're safe because you have the data, and when I'm safe, I'm more confident. When I'm more confident, I'll do more. And you keep repeating that, you start to believe that. You don't have the negative just curl up in a fetal position. Instead, you're back on that road, you're getting your life back, you're being active, and you're doing good things. So, like I said, I've done a lot of product testing. The other thing about being a 30-year heart patient and lots of devices is I've had a couple of the unintended consequences, like scar tissue that builds up and a little bit of heart failure due to an infection. So in 2010, I had to have open heart surgery and lung surgery, and that was the year I decided to get really serious about competing. I've since, over the years, I've been racing. This picture here of the map, that was that race I set as my goal. It's a 200-mile single-day bike race that goes from Logan, Utah to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And I did complete it. I've done it solo multiple times. The picture of me on a mountain bike was my first 24-hour solo race that I did last year. And I've made the podium at nationals. And so if you want it bad enough, we now have the technology to empower the patient to go after their dreams. And in addition, this journey that I've been on, I've had an opportunity to get involved with the Healthy Heart Study. This is a project going on at UCSF in California. And it's about putting the patient first. So how do we start to use patient-generated data to change how we diagnose heart disease, how we treat heart disease? And we're also giving patients accountability for their care. So when you're accountable, you get a voice at the table. You get to be treated like a peer because you're now a part of the process for providing care. And this is where we're also looking at big buckets of data that can be shared, and it's now a resource for researchers to come to the Healthy Heart Alliance, say they're looking for a certain cohort. They can then pull them from the study participants, which we're now up to about 30,000 people and looking to go towards 1 million over the next 10 years. But with patient consent, you can then choose to share your data and make it usable in other ways. And everybody always asks about HIPAA. When I give talks, people always want to know, well, what about your privacy? And I think we've kind of swung a little too far because we've kind of frightened people with the HIPAA document. Every time you go to the doctor, it's like, well, sign this. Can't let anybody see your medical records. Bad things will happen. And then we go home and post it on Facebook, which kind of defeats the purpose, but I think that's how much of a disconnect between what HIPAA really means, why it's important, and then what do you do with your data. So personally, for me, the length of my life and the quality of my life depends on what we learn about heart disease, how we learn to treat heart disease. And so if I can share that and be part of that solution, my ask is just that I get to have some say in the consent and who uses it and for what. Which brings me to, how do we make the big vision happen? How do we connect everyone? How do we start to make the future of digital health happen? This is where I get to bring in my day job. I'm on the Google Cloud Platform team, and my focus is in healthcare. So if you look at what Google's mission is, to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. And you pair that with excelling at managing and extracting value from data. Imagine if we applied that to all the data in healthcare and we made it accessible and useful, because I think those are some of our big problems right now. So Google Cloud Platform is the enabling technology that will allow us to get to that place that we're trying to go. This is just a quick overview of the different tools that we have available on Google Cloud Platform. So there's management tools, there's big data, there's storage, compute, and networking, and all kinds of cool stuff. And we're also interoperable. So this idea that you can bring all your data, you can store it, you can process it, you can use analytics to explore it, and then spit it back out in an interoperable way is one of the powerful tools that's going to help us all work together. We use open standards, because we want everyone to come play with us. And we also have security. So we have we have HIPAA, we have the standards and the securities. So when it gets to the point of, is data on Google Cloud Platform safe? Yes, it is. So imagine a world where we can have all of our data. You can, medical records, genomic data, device data, a lot of the things that you guys are talking about here, imaging data, patient EHR information. It can be in a database, and then it can be analyzed, and then the information presented to the appropriate stakeholders with what's of use for them. So making the data useful. So that's the vision. That's where we're headed. That's where we're looking to partner with all of you to see how we can, make this happen. Some examples of things that we're doing currently: the Google Genomics. We have a great genomics platform. It runs on our traditional cloud. So we've got the virtual machines and storage, the data services, and then the genomics API. We're doing some really great things with Autism Speaks. The cancer, these folks are the Institute for Systems Biology doing their cancer genomics on Google Cloud Platform. And then we have, if we look at where the opportunity is, where we're going next, this is where I'm really excited. The Internet of Medical Things, it's growing. We are going to see many, many connected Internet of Medical Things. And if we can connect those via the cloud and make that data easy to read and easy to share. And these are some of the tools that we offer on Google Cloud Platform that would help to make that happen. And then, of course, the patient-generated data, the wearable devices forecasts, again, growing markets. And these are the patients that are coming to the physicians, and they're coming with all this data. And right now, that data is kind of overwhelming to the healthcare ecosystem. They're like, what are we supposed to do with all this stuff? We need to be able to take it, and we need to be able to store it, analyze it, and then look for the anomalies, and make the anomalies or the variations, make that available to the care team so they can have discussions, again, on things that really matter and not get buried in just the sheer amount of data. And I think one of the other things that's happening through PCORI, which is the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute, and PPRNs, which are patient-powered research networks, is this whole idea of patient-generated data being made available for research, and also this idea that you're making patients more accountable for their care because they've got more information. These are some of the tools on cloud that will start to bring together the ability to do the patient-generated data and the wearable technologies. And this is kind of what that architecture looks like. Your devices connected to your gateways, and that might be your cell phone or whatever the connector is that gets you to the cloud. And then you can ingest that data through multiple services that we have, and storage, or send it to analytics, or back to storage, or right out to the applications for the presentation, again, back to the specific stakeholders and showing them what's important to them. So in conclusion, we're moving to a world where we have lots of data. The data needs to be interoperable, and we all need to be able to do something with it. And it's more than just, the electronic health records. It's going to be things like genomics. It's going to be all kinds of data that needs to come together, be shared and analyzed, and then how do we find those nuggets of really useful, actionable items? And personally, for me, I'm really excited about where we are now. I've spent 30 years traveling this journey, trying to figure out, how I can be more responsible, how I can have more knowledge, and how I can add value to my care team, and also understand what's going on with my personal health issues. The work that all of you are doing, it's going to make a lot of people's lives really amazing. You will have a huge impact, and it will be sometimes just at the individual level. You won't always get to hear about it. I'm sure the folks at Boston Scientific don't always get to hear about the difference that what they do each day makes to someone like me, because every heartbeat is based on all the hard work that they do. And much like what you guys are doing, people will come to depend on your products and your services, and you'll make an amazing difference in their lives. So that picture right there was actually at the end of a 200-mile single-day gravel race in Kansas. And I used every single heartbeat in that pacemaker. But anyways, really awesome to see all of you here, and I look forward to what happens next. So thank you.
Okay. Our judges are back. We have a winner. Apologies for the delay. It was a very difficult decision. There was certainly a lot of debate, and the debate was around the things that you'd expect to be around. How big is the market? How well thought through is the product? At the end of the day, the judges were unanimous in the decision. They felt that the winner did a really outstanding job with researching their market, understanding their customer pilots, and knowing what their customers want. That they have a business model that makes sense in the real world, that's scalable. They have people who are willing to pay for the product. And that the market is very, very large. So those were the top three reasons for the choice. In addition, they felt that the product had excellent potential for follow-on additional features that you could add to it. So without keeping you guessing any longer, the unanimous decision is that the winner of the Connected Patient Challenge, the Boston Scientific Connected Patient Challenge, is WatchRx. Photos. Quick photo up, and then we'll hear from our winners. Yeah, let's do a quick photo. I'll get out of it. Maybe we did a handhold.
Yeah, present the award to you, and congratulations, and a great job. I just want to wish you congratulations for this. I mean, there was a fantastic group of finalists here, and so no easy task to come out on top, and we'll definitely be following up with you afterwards to talk about your next steps. So congratulations. Thank you. Yeah.
Congratulations. Great event. We want to really thank Jim and the MedStro organization for helping us facilitate this. It's been a journey. It's been a lot of fun. And if you followed the activity on the website, every day we got new information coming through. There was a nice dialogue continuing a good discussion, hopefully some good ideas back to you that you can bring to market in future years. It's been fun, and people have asked what's in it for Boston Scientific, and I think this shows what's in it. New connections. We made some new partners tonight, so thank you very much.
You want to say a few words?
I'll let Jayanti speak. She's the one who started with this idea, and she's the award winner today, the other one, so I'll let her talk.
Thank you all. It has been a wonderful event, and all the entries, all the contestants were really good. So we were keeping our fingers crossed till the last moment. And thank you all the judges, Boston Scientific, as well as Google Cloud for encouraging this competition. And definitely proud and excited. I don't know what words to say. So thank you all. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you. And that is the end of the program. We will still be serving food and drink until 9 o'clock, so feel free to mingle and meet other people and taste some of the Google desserts that are out there.
She walks to the sea.